Hello everyone and welcome to another problem solving techniques video with me Abhijit Rai. Now as you can see already, this question is a very long question and it represents a word problem in official guide to GMAT. Word problems are notorious for taking too much time. So one of the most important things you will take away from this video is how to solve these kind of questions quickly. We are going to talk about three approaches with increasing degree of time factor. We are also going to talk about, if you chose the longest approach, what would be the most recommended approach to do the calculation. I will also give you a bonus, a question if you haven't already attempted it, on which this same calculation approach applies so that you can practice it in an official guide to GMAT question. Second, there is a tendency for people to get stuck in profit and loss questions. We'll talk about how you can get unstuck even if you had to take the longer approach. And finally, as I said, we are going to talk about how to save time if you take the more calculation intensive approach and what is the best way to approach there. I am confident you are going to get a lot of value from this video. If you find this video helpful, do not forget to like and subscribe to my channel. I would really appreciate it. The first approach we are going to take is mostly reason. As we break down the question, you will realize that on some of the cameras, the dealer is making a profit. On some of the other cameras, he is making a loss. Now, there has to be an offset point where the profits are getting offset with the loss or vice versa. And then the rest of the profits or the rest of the losses are taking the overall profit and loss into a certain direction. We should be able to use that information to get to information. So that will be our first approach. Our second approach would be the weighted average method. It is a very powerful method. However, if you are not very comfortable with the application of the method or the formula of the method, it is not the most recommended one. This is a one-step approach that will help you solve the problem. It will be good for you to understand it and know it for future. And finally, the longer version of the approach, but this is a never stuck method. In this method, you will never get stuck because we talk about where to start and how to move forward in any profit and loss question. We are also going to talk about how to manage calculations when the calculations seem unmanageable or too much in GMAT. So let's get started with method number one, the offsets. Before we start, we have to read through the question and take down all the information. We are given there are 60 cameras and they are sold for $250 each. So the selling price is given to be $250. We are also given that the selling price represents a 20% markup on the initial cost. So this is 1.2C, 20% markup on the initial cost. So this implies that my C will be 250 divided by 1.2, and we will see when to use that. We're also given that 6 cameras were never sold. So the dealer actually ended up paying cost C on these cameras and he was not able to sell them. So he returned it to the company, but he only got 50% of the cost back. So technically it represents 50% loss. So 6 cameras at 50% loss. He was able to sell the rest of the cameras. So 54 cameras represent 20% gain because his selling price is actually 1.2 times his cost price, right? It's a 20% markup. So for every camera he sells, he gets a 20% profit. So in the first approach, we talk about the offsets. And why am I thinking about offsets? There are certain cameras he gets a loss on, and there are certain cameras he gets a profit on. So at some point, the loss equals profit. And for the rest, either there is a lot of loss or there is a lot of profit, but there is a point at which they come together, right? Let's think of it that way. Let's take a hypothetical situation. Let's assume that for every camera he sells, he makes a profit of $1, and every camera he does not sell, he makes a loss of 0.5. Now for every camera, let's say he sells 1 camera, for him to offset that profit, he would have to not sell 2 cameras because then his loss will become 2 multiplied by 0.5 equals -1, and 1 and -1 would cancel out. So we are going to find that offset point. So in this method, we are given there are 60 cameras. He has a loss on 6 of them and he has a profit on 54 of them, right? The loss is minus 50% and the profit is 20%. If he does not sell one camera, how many cameras would he have to sell to actually offset this loss? And the answer is 2.5, right? 2.5 multiplied by 20 would be 50. So for every camera he doesn't sell, he would have to sell 2.5 cameras to offset that. So for 6 cameras he doesn't sell, he would have to sell 15 cameras to offset the profit. So we know that after the 15 cameras he has sold, he is going to make only profit, right? He has already offset all his losses. So at 15, his profit equals loss. Beyond this 15, the rest of the 54 he sells, which is 54 minus 15 equals 39, is going to be profit. So at this point, I know something very clear. It cannot be a loss. He is going to have a profit. At this point, I also know that profit is multiple of 13. 13 threes are 39. If I were you, I would just stop here, mark 13 as my answer and move on. However, let's continue solving this question. So we know that there are 39 units left which is going to make me profit. How much profit are they going to make me? 20%. I still have to calculate the profit percentage, and profit percentage is always with respect to the initial cost or the initial amount that was bought. So that would be 60, and as you solve this, you will get this as 0.13, which is also 13%. I hope you found the method helpful. This is going to be applicable to all questions you solve from now on. So practice it again and try to understand it better. And if you have a question, please feel free to ask in the comment section below. In the second method, we are going to apply a weighted average formula, basically saying that the overall profit would be weighted average between the losses and the profits. So my loss is 0.5 multiplied by 6 plus my profit is 0.2 multiplied by 54 divided by my initial number that I bought or my initial cost, which is 60, and this also will give you 0.13, 13%. Now if you are practiced enough, both of these methods will give you the answer in almost the same amount of time. The second probably will take you slightly less time. However, it is a little bit more involved calculation. Now let's assume that you're stuck. You don't know how to approach the offsets method, and the weighted average method is completely out of your mind, or you are not aware of it. How do you start solving questions like this? So here is method number 3. Get to the cost first. Cost is the basis of all profit and loss percentage problems. You calculate profit percentage on the cost. You calculate loss percentage on the cost. You calculate profit by subtracting the total sales minus the total cost, right? So you have to know the cost. And if there is a way to get to the cost, that should be your goal. And that is the trick to getting unstuck. All right. So here we already saw, we calculated the cost of 1 unit to be 250 divided by 1.2. So I already got to the cost first, and at this point your instinct may be to actually calculate the cost by saying 250 divided by 1.2 is what. This is where I would caution you, do not calculate till you absolutely need to, because you are already seeing some divisions, and as you start calculating, they may cancel off. And this exact recommendation is at play in one of the other official guide questions that I have put in my description, so you can practice the same thing there. What I am going to do is not calculate the cost at all at this point and just use 250 divided by 1.2. Total cost for 60 cameras would be 60C, which is equal to 60 multiplied by 250 divided by 1.2. Again, let's keep it as is. Let's not calculate any, right? Now, total income will be the 54 cameras that I have sold at 250. So 54 multiplied by 250 plus I also got some money back for the 6 cameras, and that was the 50% of the money. So I can write that as 0.5 multiplied by my C multiplied by 6, which is also equal to 0.5 multiplied by, so my total cost looks like this. And what is profit percentage? Total income minus total cost divided by total cost multiplied by 100, right? So let's write that down quickly. And this is the formula for my profit percentage. Now remember, I had mentioned not to start calculating too early. Otherwise, you would have spent a lot of time on calculations itself. Here, I can easily see that 250 cancels off. I also see that 60 divided by 1.2 is repeated here. So this will cancel off on this side of the numerator. And on this side of the numerator, I am seeing some really good multiples of 6 and 9. For example, 6 nines are 54. There is 6 here. Eventually, things will cancel off and it will become very easy to calculate as you simplify it. And you will get the answer as 0.13, which is same as 13% profit. So here are some of the takeaways that you should put in your note, right? First is how to get unstuck. Always start with the cost price. If you start with the cost price or the cost that the dealer had to pay to get the camera in this particular question, then you are golden. You will not get stuck in profit and loss questions. Another important thing to know, and I will go back to the previous slide for that, you did not need the selling price of 250 at all. In the method number 1 and method number 2, if you recall, we did not use selling price at all. We just used the offset. In method number 2 also, we did not use the selling price. And in method number 3, we started using the selling price to get to the cost. But in the end, all of that got cancelled off. So you did not really need 250 or the selling price because everything was in respect to C, which is the cost price. And that's why cost price is that important. And finally, understanding how averages work, how offsets work will be very, very helpful in solving questions like this, where certain quantities are pushing towards a positive, other quantities are pushing towards a negative. There is almost always a point where some of it will get offset or a 0 point, and beyond which there would be either a profit or a loss. And if you apply it consistently, it will become like a second nature to use that approach in the problem. I hope you found this video helpful. If you have any questions, please put it in the comments box. I personally respond to all the questions. If you found the video helpful, please take a moment to like the video and subscribe to my channel. All the best with your prep. Have a great day.